Hello and welcome everyone, I'm TheSparrowsJourney and this is WildStar. We're going to be taking a quick look at the first dungeon for level 20s. It's called Ruins of Kel Voreth and it's located in the southeast corner of Aurora, which is a Dominion zone. You could easily call it a Dominion dungeon, but it's not because any exile can access it through the looking for group window, or you can physically go there if you're below level 20, because level 20 guys can do this dungeon. If they physically go there, they can only use looking for group window once they hit level 20. Now, once you enter this dungeon, you immediately see a battle pit. This is where the first battle against the first boss will happen. The first boss is called Grond the Corpsemaker, and once you clear this pit out of the trash, he will spawn and he will come at you and you will face him. Now, it's cool to notice that there is a lot of traps in this sort of area. And it's not worth to just clear them out, because they will spawn immediately after. So you should fight this boss right in the middle, the center of the battle. There he is, the big pork, the big pig. And you should keep your group to the sides, because he will have a front and rear conical attack. There are two phases. The first phase, you should obviously avoid all the traps and keep this guy in the middle of the arena. As I said, you will do a front and rear conical attack. That's why you want to keep your group to the side, so they will not be hit by this. There's also a charge ability, which you will charge through a random target in your group. You cannot avoid that. There's also an ability called Below. You will kind of keep cycling in the middle and target everyone that is near that area. So you should avoid that and run from him with this ability. This ability will also spawn 3 Bloodsucker fleas, and you should either kite them or just DPS them down. They're not too much trouble. The more trouble is the last ability, which is called Trash. You will begin spinning in cycles, and it will make Fisher-type line telegraphs that expand from him. Trash does a lot of damage, and the further you are from him, and if you're hit by that Fisher, the more damage you will take and you will be knocked down. It's important to notice that you must interrupt this trash ability after he starts casting it and while he is spinning. The phase 2, in which he's already in it, I think, it's below 30% of his health pool. He will gain a new ability called Mutilate. So this phase is basically just like the first one, but with a new ability called Mutilate. You will make a canalized conical telegraph in front of him. A double dodge should be enough to get out in front of him and be safe from this Mutilate ability. I unfortunately died because I don't have too much of a good tank gear. Also, the healer shouldn't have that good of a gear because it's just the first few levels of WildStar leveling, so we're not focusing our main task still, we're focusing the DPS. Now, the other bosses are the Slavemaster Drokk, which you will see in a second. It's the second boss. There's also an optional boss, which is called Dark Witch Gurkha, which we were lucky enough to face because I know for a fact that it doesn't spawn in every run. And there's also Forgemaster Trogun. That's the final boss and a chaotic one. Now, in this part of the dungeon that you just saw, these green sort of metallic objects, you can skip them, but you can also kill this trash. It's sort of an option they give you, which is pretty cool. They give you an option to either skip all of it and disable the alerts and the lasers that are around. There is a way to disable them, or you can just kill them all through. Now, in this part, this was funny. I thought I would have found a bug or some sort of glitch because I could skip a part of the dungeon. I could skip a boss. But it's actually intended. You either will kill that optional boss, which is the Dark Witch Gurkha, or you want to kill it. It's just an option they give you. It's pretty cool. So first, I skipped it, but then I went back. As you see here, and I went to kill her because the rest of the group wanted to kill her. This is one of the ways of disabling the lasers that are around to make your, I don't know, running better throughout the dungeon. And this is the optional boss, the Dark Witch Gurkha. There's not too much to it. Actually, people don't really care much about the tactics in this boss because honestly, it was one of the easiest boss I've ever done in WildStar. It doesn't do too much basic damage, or none at all. What you really want to avoid is her magical attacks, because that's what she does a lot. So every telegraphic you see on the ground, you want to avoid it. I know that's something that you want to do with every boss, with every creature. But this one, this Bloody Witch, does a lot of magical attacks on the floor, and you gotta be careful with them. I don't think there's anything much to interrupt or to be careful with, just tank and spank, normal phase, and avoiding telegraphs. I know she does blind, and that's something you gotta be careful with. And she also does these spikes that are coming out from the ground. That's what you want to avoid. When you're blinded, it's a little bit more difficult to avoid them because you can't see them and you can't see the telegraphs. But it's still somewhat easy because if you target a position to be throughout the whole fight, you know that will always be a safe spot. She doesn't move from there, so the telegraphs will normally hit always the same position. Now, I want to talk a little bit more about Runes of Kel Voreth, which is something I did at first, because the first boss is almost immediately after the entrance. These runes are populated by gigantic barbaric humanoids. They are called the Ozone. This particular Ozone present in these runes are from the Voreth tribe, and thus why this dungeon is called Runes of Kel Voreth. So after the Elden vanished, the Voreth Ozone tribe were among the first to emerge from hiding to reclaim the territory lost in the conflict with their old enemies. Actually, this Ozone tribe, or this Ozone race, if you want to call it that, is rumored to be created by the Elden themselves. Now, once they took care of this place, of the Runes of Kel Voreth, and they're guarding it with what they have at hand, they're trying to keep the control of it as their ancestral home, and then trying to discover what were the Elden about to do. That's basically their purpose. What you're watching right now is the second boss after the optional boss. It could be the third boss because it's actually a boss. It's the second one. He's called Slavemaster Drokk, and you will soon understand why. Now, there's a first active phase. This is somewhat complicated between phases. There's a first active phase, which is the one you just seen, and we're done with it. It's just the very first contact DPS phase. And then you'd have a first portal phase. What is a portal phase? Drokk will enter his portal and summon a bunch of sentries, which will spread out around the battlefield and blow up after a short period of time. What you want to do is, together with your group, decide one sentry to kill and remain in that spot, because it will be a safe zone once you kill that sentry, because all the sentries blow up at the end. So, and it's not damage that you can survive. So you want to kill one sentry and be on that safe spot to go to the next phase. There's a second active phase, which I already went through, and then there's the enslave phase, which is this one you're watching right now. I'm doing it wrong. I'm not even knowing what happened, because this was my first try on this boss. In this enslave phase, Drokk will knock everyone back and teleport each party member to their own pylon, and you will be stuck to that pylon. While in prison, you can only move a short distance. You will continue to pulse AoE damage with a skill called Suppression Wave, and shoot lasers at the target party member. What you gotta do is basically DPS those pylons down and free every member that is imprisoned on that pylon. The only member that should need help is probably the healer, even though I was a tank and I needed help. That's because I didn't start DPSing that pylon, and I should have. So there's a third active phase after the enslave one, which I already went through, and then there's a second portal phase at about 50% you will again return to the portal. But this time, you will send out droids which will track certain party members and detonate once they are in range of that party member. What you need to do is DPS down those drones, those droids, whatever they're called, and with the target party member at the long range so that they don't die. At the end of the phase, all the remaining droids will be triggered to detonate, so you gotta be careful with that. That's what you're seeing in the screen. Then comes the fourth active phase, which is somewhat a semi-in-range phase, because it has almost all the skills from the previous phases, along with the suppression wave skill. Also, the portal now will frequently spawn sentries which pick an area to move to, then detonate. This is basically a tank and spank phase with the droids and with a suppression wave skill. Normally, to avoid the suppression wave skill, you want to move away from him when he starts that skill, and then at one point, at one safe point, you want to dodge in front, to the front, in order to avoid that next suppression wave skill pulse. This would be the last phase while we'll be passing him down. It's basically everything that they've done during the fight, but all mixed up and a little bit more easy. There we go. It's down. The Slavemaster. And you know now why he was a Slavemaster, because he can enslave you. Finally, the last boss would be Forgemaster Trogun. We're making our way to him. And now you start seeing a little bit difference in the landscape. You change from a green metal zone area to an actual ruins and rocks and dust and whatever. You also have some optional quests, which you sort of chose to do. You have like forges you need to blow up, because these guys are Forgemasters. They are the masters of the blacksmith. They deal with metal, with volcanoes, with fire. You can see that all around. There's a lot of trash that you can avoid, like this one. We avoided that witch and chose to kill only the patrol instead. This is something I really like about WildStar. In most dungeons, at least so far, I was able to choose to either kill most of the trash or try to avoid a lot of them. And I like that. Like they don't give you a hard mode. I think you will have a different mode in the future. I'm not sure of this, but they give you a more risky way of doing it, which is trying to avoid most of the trash. It's risky because eventually, if you like pull one while killing another group, you will probably die. But it's cool. It's cool to do. This is like a mini version of the Forgemaster, this guy, because it really looks like him.
Intruders. Impossible.
So Forgemaster Trogun, after a phase 1, it's actually hard to divide this fight into phases. There's like a pre-phase and then there's a main phase, but I want to call it phase 1 and phase 2. The first phase, you move to him and you start the fight by aggroing the guy. What will basically happen is that you will run to a forge and begin casting Exanite weapon. During this cast, the forge battle area will erupt in flame-spewing mini volcanoes. You must dodge the volcanoes and the projectiles. You cannot attack Trogun during this phase, even though I was lucky enough to get 1 or 2 shots at him, but that basically will make no difference at the end. Now the chaos start. This fight is chaotic as crap. I never had a fight with so much going on in my screen. I pity the people that don't have a computer strong enough to run this game, because they will really struggle in this part. Now, the phase 2 starts when he leaves the forge and starts attacking you. We're already seeing some abilities that I will try to explain rapidly, because there's so much chaos in this freaking fight. In this phase 2, he will mainly use his Volcano Strike attack that leaves more fissure volcanoes behind. What you gotta do is dodge these volcano strikes, the volcanoes themselves, and the volcanoes projectiles. So this is one of the fights that get increasingly more hard the more it lasts, because there will be more volcanoes in the area. Now at about 70% it will cost a move called Forgemaster's Call. Trogun will spawn several friendly fire orbs. We've already seen that. There were green area telegraphs that you must pick up before it reaches the Forgemaster, because if he picks most of them, you will have a kick-ass massive attack to the team that will eventually wipe all the group. So the more fires, or I don't know what you want to call it, but they're sort of fire orbs, the more you pick, the less damage that massive attack will do. Also, it's cool to note that these orbs will also give a small buff that boosts your damage once you pick them up. So after falling below 50%, and he's already below 50%, you will return to the forge and start casting Exonite weapon again. But this time is some sort of fiery razor discs that will come out of that forge and be launched at you across all the area. What you basically will have to do is avoid, obviously, all those discs, and it's some sort of Spade Invaders minigame. You're already seeing that, and we're already through that. So below 20%, you will eventually cast Forgemaster's Call again, but this time, those Fury Razor's discs will come at you, while the Fire Orbs will be coming to the Forgemaster himself. So again, just like the other dungeon bosses, everything mixes up at the end, at the very end of the boss, and you gotta avoid being hit by those discs while picking up those orbs. Hope you enjoyed this video. I'm TheSparrowsJourney, and this was WildStar, the dungeon, the ruins of Kel Voreth. Please like, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. And I'll see you next time. Bye bye.